Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast. Uh, for those of you early, you might have got a surprise because I was getting ready to come on. And I was like, oh, it's feeling good. I'm like, oh no, I got to turn off my radio. I was blasting Madonna and was having so much fun. I didn't realize it, but that's how much I look forward to coming to our lives every day. I want to say thank you to those engaging in chat. I really appreciate that. That's how you turn this from a training into an event, a community where we can network with each other. I won't be in the chat as much now. I try to follow up afterwards, but for you, you're able to meet with other people and talk. So thank you for engaging in the chat. Make sure you're letting us know company name, core competency. 2 or 3 words is one of the best things that make it easy for us to remember who you are. The other thing is if you're over on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc., while we do broadcast out there, that's not where the community is. It just is not tools that enable us to have a network. But if you come over here to LinkedIn, connect. Make sure you connect with me. If you do, just give me one little thing like, hey, saw you on the training. That way I just know you're connected to our world. You're not some random blast connection, if you will. Okay, I like to start off the training with a little thank you to those showing up early and on time with a special tip that's just unique for you, right? And today's tip is around compound effect of what we do. In the federal government, we do sales. And anybody who's been doing sales a while understands that you don't just go out and get a sale and you're done, especially when you're talking about more sophisticated solution selling or even bigger construction selling, whatever it is. It takes time. And only through your effort will you be able to get results, right? And that's compound effect. I want to equate it to thinking about chopping down a tree. I literally went to ChatGPT. That's my favorite go-to expert these days, right? Not that it's a source, but it's a good thing like Wikipedia to get my ideas going on certain things. And I said, well, how many times do you have to hit a tree to knock down the tree with an axe? And I don't know if you know this, but the average pine tree, 6 to 12 inches or something, that takes 100 to 300 hits on it. I grew up in Northern California and we have redwoods up there. And those are huge, huge trees, 10 feet in diameter starting kind of thing. And those take thousands of hits with an axe, right? Swinging at that tree, not that we cut redwoods down, but swinging at that tree, right? To cut it down, it takes thousands of hits. And every time you hit that tree, you're chopping a little bit out, but you're not really seeing the result you want. If you think about, I want a sale, whether it's $1 million sale or $100 million sale, right? A pine tree or a redwood, if you will. Every time you're hitting the tree, you're notching a little, but you're not seeing it fall over. You're not getting the results that you want. Every time you do something, like you make a phone call, but you don't reach somebody, or you send an email and you don't get an email back, or you have a meeting and then there's no second meeting, or you have a meeting and you learn something, but then you don't have everything you need to put together a good understanding of the opportunity or to write a really good response. All of these activities you do together, their compound effect will knock the tree over, will deliver that sale, right? And in sales, it's not every tree will knock over completely, but you get my point, right? If it takes this many times to knock down a simple tree that's around your office or your home, right? 100 or 300 hits, are you knocking at the tree of a federal sale or a federal opportunity? Are you knocking at it 100 to 300 times? Or are you putting it in your pipeline and writing a proposal, which is the equivalent of you thinking you're Paul Bunyan. Man, it's been too long. Thinking you're Paul Bunyan with a big old axe, you're like, boom, I'm knocking that tree down in one fell swoop. That's not going to happen, right? And so just think about the compound effect. Even if it sometimes might seem a little disappointing, if you realize that every time you take a swing at that axe at the tree, you're taking a little bit of the tree away so it will fall down. Every time you take a swing at the opportunity that you're trying to pursue in federal government, everything you do, including not getting a meeting, is leading towards you knocking down that sale so you can get it. Anyways, quick little tip for those showing up early and on time. Hope you found it valuable. If you did, say, knock it down in the chat. And if you feel like putting something in the chat, let's get rocking and rolling on today's training. I spoke recently at Morehouse College in Atlanta, and while down there, one of the questions I got was about what are the top 3 business development investments that I would make. And it was interesting because it really got me thinking about this training and how I might talk about it. The way I answered the question, interestingly, was, well, I wouldn't make a lot of investments. I would actually hire an intern, and then I would train them on my process and have them do stuff. That way I could constantly make sure they're doing the right thing. And I'd have this just huge upcycle of the ability to pay them more and more every year based on their growth. And I said that because I was down there with a lot of businesses doing, $3, $4, $5 million was the average. And what I was trying to say is you don't have to look at just seasoned people. If you have a good process, you can really bring in anybody and teach them the process. Are they going to be as effective as somebody following the exact same process with 20 years? No, but they will be effective. They will start working that tree and knocking it down, right? And so it got me thinking about what are the top contracting jobs or the jobs for small business government contractors inside of our companies. I've had 2 companies. I'll talk about that in a second, but it's a whole big difference between what we say about jobs in a small business and what we say about larges. I can tell whether a person who works at a large company has any clue about a small, the way they talk about jobs and getting something done. And you'll see me kind of allude to this. It's not that they're bad. It's that they're ignorant. And I don't mean ignorant in a bad way because I'm ignorant of all sorts of stuff, right? There's all sorts of stuff I just don't know. That's, it's not ignorance by choice. It's just I haven't been exposed to it. Well, sometimes we think larges know what smalls are like. They really don't. You have rare people who might have a feeling, right? They know a small business owner, et cetera. But for the most part, don't think that larges know it. And we sometimes have to educate them. But it begins with us having a good balance on it. So I wanted to talk today about those top government contracting jobs, right? And the roles that are within your company, maybe even giving you recommendations on which direction you go. So today's training, as we talk about top government contracting jobs for small businesses, I'm going to break it up into 4 sections of what I'll talk about. The first thing is, I just want to do that compare and contrast, right? What's the difference between large and small businesses and government contracting in particular, right? The second thing I'm going to talk about is back office roles, anything not related to sales, which is the third thing I'm going to talk about. So I want to separate those out and give you my thoughts on them and really just understanding what are they to a degree. And then I'll wrap up with my recommendations, right? Which ones should be in-house? Which ones should be out? Who should be doing what? I want to share some of my recommendations around there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know me, I want to welcome you to my training. My name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce and co-founder of GovCon in a Box, which I'm pretty excited about. So go to govconinabox.com and learn more about what we're doing out there with tools. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. It's why I do this training over and over again, so that we can have some predictability about what does 2025 look like. How will I know how successful I'll be or whether I'll reach my revenue goals? That comes from having process that leads to that predictability. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our LinkedIn Government Contracting Success newsletter. Love to have you in there. It's where we share a lot of great information. If you haven't done so already, make sure you register for tomorrow's training. I'm going to wrap up the week, right? I do replays on this, but the live training tomorrow is simple tips for proposal writing. I think we have close to 200 people register for that. People are pretty excited about it. That's where I'm going to share tips for proposal writing from a sales guy's perspective, right? There's people out there who are just pure professional proposal managers and writers. And then there's people who are salespeople. And I want to share you some tips that I've had that really work for success in there. If you haven't visited govconinabox.com yet, one of the things that we do on there is give you a federal visibility score for small businesses. And these 84 companies are in what we call the 100 Club. And I want to congratulate systems integration partners, Eric Morgan, who's probably in the chat, hopefully, so we can celebrate him today. Do a little shout out. Congratulations, Eric. I want to celebrate these companies, though. They have done in the government tools, they have made themselves fully visible to the federal buyer. There's 370,000 small businesses, and only 84 of them have this 100 score. None of the score is a proprietary thing to me, right? I just give a calculation and point to the government tools. Where the government looks for you, are you visible? Can they find you, and will they want to even talk with you based on what you have in there? So make sure you go check out your visibility score and join the 100 Club. Let's get started talking about the difference between large and small businesses. When we're thinking about the roles out there, I like to just start with that. right? There's a huge difference. Like on one hand, we all know that a billion-dollar company and we're a $1 million or less company or whatever, right? We all kind of instinctively know that there's a difference. And then other times we end up acting as if we're the same. A large business might look down to the small and say, you should be just as mature as us. It's like, how on earth is that possible? Right? I could easily go work for that large business. So I could be right there, your colleague. But when I'm in a small business, it's a whole different thing. So the first compare and contrast I want to do here is that small businesses typically have 1 to 5 people. Of course, there's a lot more people. But basically, when you think about where the back office side, the people who are not billable, they tend to be about 1 to 5 people. And that could go up to a $50 million company, right? I mentioned a previous customer of ours that won $60, $70 million contract. They won that contract with 2 people in the back office, them, the 2 owners, right? And so small businesses are limited in the amount of people they have in the company who are working on anything that is not the billable work. Compare that to large businesses, which have unlimited resources. I'm using Booz Allen as my example here. Booz Allen Hamilton. They have 34,000 employees. 34,000. When you think about the difference, small businesses are working with Booz Allen, but you got to understand they've got way more resources. Where small businesses have dual-hatted people. For example, I remember my last company. I was a government contractor in the IT businesses or business side, and we would do sales. And we were big enough, right? We had to have a dedicated HR director, somebody who really took the lead on making sure the people were taken care of, right? The people we had hired. It wasn't about recruiting. And so she was there, but we were also trying to grow and we needed to go to the next level. So she invested 25 to 40% of her time was in business development, those initial outreach activities, building relationships. She used to attend because we're in DC, she would attend the vendor outreach sessions agencies would have to try to meet some people and then throw it forward to the next group of people, usually me, who's talking about our company. But in a small business, we have dual roles. You'll find a proposal manager is also the proposal writer who's also engaged in early stage stuff, right? Where in a large, though, not only do they not have those dual roles, but they have role redundancy. An example is I've got a friend who's got a large, almost $1 billion sales goal within DoD in one of the services, like Air Force, let's say. $1 billion goal, but there's also multiple other people who are responsible for the Air Force, right? And so they've got a lot of that redundancy in there that we don't have. One of my big flags in there when I think about role redundancy is when you think about you have different people who are doing tables in a proposal or charts, things like that. And for us, it is literally whoever's got talent within it. It's like the recruiter. Hey, do you know how to do graphics? Sure. It's like, okay, you're our graphic person today. That's not a bad thing. We just have limited money. So we just work 10 times as hard as a large, not as a person in a large. No offense to the person in a large, but there's a whole different activity when you think about dual roles. Okay, the 5th bullet here is when you think the 5th and the 6th bullet are about who do we get to come work for us. When you think about who larges get, they get very seasoned people. Think about people with 20 plus years of experience, or they're retiring out. And the reason they're able to do that partly is because they can pay them a massive salary. And for small businesses, we're just getting started. It's like we know we need a person in this role or that role or that role, but we don't have an unlimited amount of money yet to be able to, or ever, to be able to pay these exorbitant salaries and compensation, et cetera. And so we won't generally get somebody who's coming out of the Navy who's like, let's say, a retired captain. Actually, my cousin came out and he was a retired captain, well versed in everything Navy, weapons, et cetera. He could never have come into a small business like mine. Even though I was doing really well, we just could never afford him at that level. And I don't know what he made, but I know where he went. He went to Booz Allen, right? And Booz Allen has a lot of those people. They can afford to pay a lot of these people where they're going back in and they have such deep relationships and understanding of the Navy in this case. So they can get those seasoned professionals. It doesn't make our people any less or more or any less in this particular case. It just means we don't have as much exposure. The people we hire might be really talented with doing business development, but they don't have the strength of relationships. That's what I mean when I'm saying seasoned professional. It's just easier for seasoned professionals sometimes to do something. Both of large and small people have equal skills, but sometimes those relationships go a long way. And then the second to last bullet and the last bullet are about money. How much money do they have? Small businesses have no extra dollars. Even if we show a net profit, it almost always is because the owners are not paying themselves enough. I say this all the time. In small businesses, owners should be paying themselves more. You never wait to sell your company to make your money, right? That should be a bonus when you sell your company. What you want to do is to pay yourself a good enough salary. But because we're small and we're trying to grow our company, we don't do that. We pay ourselves far less. Even if we pay ourselves a reasonable amount, it is nowhere near the amount that is being paid to to larges with people in this similar responsibility. And when we do have some money, it's kind of being invested perhaps into the people we have and some additional training, et cetera. So some basic things, but we don't sit around with a lot of extra cash. Compare that to larges, right? Booz Allen, as an example, not only is a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company, right? They made $605 million net profit in 2020, March 2024. Those numbers are from March 2024, right? I just went online and looked at their website and saw it. $605 million. Can you imagine if you could have $605 million? What would you do with that, right? They have a lot more capability at their hands. It doesn't make them any better than us. It just means that they have more resources, in this particular case, more dollars. So that was just a quick understanding. When you're going up against anybody out there, just operate within your means and bring down your expectations of what you can actually get done. So an example of something that you should not be doing, in my opinion, is traveling to conferences. That is a very expensive thing, but you could build relationships virtually. Then once you're making money and you have some extra money, then start going to conferences. That's a very simple example of how not to be spending $5,000 or $10,000 at a pop, right? And those $5,000 or $10,000 add up pretty fast. Okay, I want to walk through two different sets of roles, back office roles, and then I'll talk about sales roles within a small business. I'm just tracking my time. If you haven't been here before, I end at 12:30, so I've got about 15 minutes. So the first role, obviously, is CEO and president. That's the person running the company. And I know I'm talking to a degree, everything you know, but I like level setting and just reminding ourselves what are some of those roles. So the CEO and the president, their big role, a big part of it is that leadership side. Where are we going? Where are we taking this company? And then you have finance, right? So these are the people responsible for making sure we have enough money to pay people, that we're paying our bills and we're getting our invoices paid by our customers. That whole side of it, right? The money side. You have legal. So you think about NDAs and teaming agreements. Think about any kind of guidance you might want when you're looking at your proposals or the teaming activity on a proposal, subcontracts that you're doing with another prime. You might need some review there. Think about protests. I was just looking at a protest somebody was doing recently, and both sides have that legal expense, right? If somebody protests you and you're the awardee, all of a sudden you have legal expenses you didn't even count on. So you have that kind of side. You have the security. Obviously, you have the physical and just day-to-day security of a company, but you have the FSO, the facility security officer. As you grow and mature in the federal market, you're going to go from not having security clearances to having a secret facility clearance, meaning your company has that clearance. And so facility clearance officer or security officer, they manage all that activity. It's a responsibility in there. You have HR, and HR to me is different than staffing. HR is about the people you have. It's retention. How do I keep my people happy? How do I make sure they're doing the right things? That kind of stuff. And then staffing and recruiting is how do I attract talent into my company? Those are two totally different things. A HR person is not a recruiter, and vice versa, right? And then the last one I have here is just service delivery or contract administration. If you win contracts, you got to deliver on them. And I consider that kind of a back office thing away from sales. The end of the sales is when I get the contract, and then I pass it off to the service delivery people, the people who will manage that contract throughout the life of the contract. So you have all these roles in the back office. Often what happens is one or two people got most of these hats on, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's really important to remember that that as you move forward, this is all the back office activity that is important, but is not growing your company. Hey, really quick, speaking of growing your company, on October 28th, so not next Monday, but the one after that, we're doing another virtual networking event. I'd love to have you out there. We talk about digging your well before you're thirsty. That's the whole point of networking, is that you want to be able to meet people constantly. Every single week, you're meeting new people so that you can help them if they ask, and they can help you. This isn't, networking is not about teaming. It's not about subcontracting, right? Networking is about the beginning. Think about your church or your neighbors. That's your network. And so here you want to build your professional government contracting network. And we make that easy by organizing this event. So right now it's every couple of weeks. Pretty soon we'll get that to weekly. And there's millions of people out there, so you don't have to come every week. But for us, we want to make this available. So if you want to network, you can come back. We had over 100 people, I think, at the last one, right near 100, which is fantastic. It's a great way to network. It's on October 28th. Go to govconinAbox/networking to figure out how to register. It's all really quick and it's free. Oh, darn. What did I do? Oh, okay. You would think this is the first time I was using PowerPoint. I accidentally clicked on something that's hyperlinked. It went away, scared me. It's all better. Okay, so let's talk about sales roles. If those were the back office roles I talked about, right? Legal, finance, etc. Here are the sales roles. And I broke these up in the way that I just look at sales. When you think about sales in the federal market, business development, I describe as getting into an agency to know them and understand them, to identify opportunities and to build relationships, right? So you want to learn about the agency, build relationships, and identify opportunities. That's the role of a business, of business development, right? In small businesses, again, we all wear the same hat sometimes. I got that. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. But business development is constantly getting out there and meeting new agency folks or new teaming partners in your target agency. It's about learning about that agency. Compare that to the next bullet, which is capture. And I just put capture manager. It could be any title you want here. But a capture manager's job is to take one single opportunity and champion it all the way through to give your company the most chances for winning. And basically what capture is about is shaping the technical requirements in the acquisition approach. You do this through teaming relationships. You do this by talking with the government, meeting with the government, etc. So as long as you have, before the RFP drops, that's all capture activity, compared to business development is kind of before that. BD identifies the opportunity, and then you switch into capture. It's like, all right, how do I win this opportunity? A capture person might do, 2, 3, 10, 20 opportunities at the same time, but capture is about one single opportunity, where business development is about many. So those are two main roles on sales. They're the big part of sales on the beginning, on the outside side of sales. And then when you come in the house, you're still doing sales, and all these people on here are all sales related people. But the solution architect, this is a role that you must have in your company. Again, it could be the exact same person who's the business developer, the capture manager, the owner of the company, whatever it is, but somebody needs to know what you sell and how to communicate what you sell. A solution architect for my last company, for example, we did Microsoft SharePoint. When we got a PWS, a performance work statement telling me the requirements the government has, I could take that. Actually, several of us in our company could do that because we were all experts at SharePoint. But the solution architect can take that, go to a whiteboard, and just start mapping out what is required and what will it take to do this, right? And I'm not talking about final proposal writing on the technical approach. I'm just saying a solution architect can understand that's the need. Here's what I need to do. How we make it look pretty and how we communicate it to the government is further in the sales lifecycle. But a solution architect, you need somebody in the company who knows what you're doing. Sometimes it's okay to go to a teaming partner if that makes sense for you guys and they're doing that. But for the most part, in your company, figure out what you're good at and then have somebody who can communicate, really communicate that, not in a salesy way, but in a technical way. Number 4, the proposal writer. And I put here, this could be AI, because AI proposal writing tools are coming out. I don't have a problem with them. I have a problem with the quality, but that'll change. That'll improve because technology is constantly improving. But you need somebody who's going to write the proposal. And I separate that person or that role from the proposal manager, because the proposal manager is a project manager. When you think about a proposal, it has a start and a finish. And it has a clear set of tasks that need to be done in there. And so a proposal manager is managing, and it could be, by the way, the proposal manager and the business developer and everybody in between are all the same person because your company is so small. Totally get that. I've related to that, right? But when you think about that role for 1 second, A proposal manager's job is project management, making sure the tasks are getting done. If I send a data call to a teaming partner, for example, I say, hey, write me a paragraph or a page on this. The proposal manager is managing all those spinning parts. That's different than a proposal writer. Sometimes they're also called technical writers, right? But basically the writer. There's a lot of writers who get put into the proposal manager side. When you think about a large company, generally the proposal manager is starting to get farther and farther away from the writing, and they're really managing all the spinning plates. How can they really spend time writing when they've got a lot of plates moving, right? And I'm not really trying to debate anybody on this. I'm just saying those are two different things, managing a proposal and writing. It could be the very same person. I mentioned this book called E-Myth. I read it, and I must have read it back in 97, 98 or so, I feel like, because at the very beginning of my small business journeys. But in there, they tell this story about a baker, a person that started a baking business. She loves baking pies and cakes. So she starts a bakery. And throughout the whole book, what they're doing is this growth, this evolution of her as a business owner. And in this realization that it's not just about baking. Who's going to be ordering the supplies? What are you going to be doing for display? Who's going to be ringing up the cakes or the pies to the customers while you're baking stuff? And so what E-Myth was trying to do in this particular example is talk about, you have all these hats. You need to understand those hats and understand how they all come together for your business. And so here's some recommendations I have for you. This is very generic or general guidance, but it's based on what I would do if I started another company right now. And I've been this way my entire career. Outsource your non-core activity or tasks, jobs, right? If it's not core to your business, outsource it. A quick example of what is core is if you make cakes, then you keep that in-house. You're the cake maker, right? But you can outsource cleaning up the floors. Why do you need to clean the floors when that's really not your core competency? People are buying your cakes, not your cleaning service. Hopefully that made sense. So here's some examples of what I say you should outsource. Recruiting. Why on earth hire a full-time recruiter and try to become good at that when there is, like, literally in this training, I bet you there's 5 or 10 staffing companies who are experts at recruiting process. If you're in the very beginning and you go, oh, it's 20% to pay a recruiter to hire a position. And what that means is if you do a $100,000 a year person, it costs $20,000. Well, first off, you can negotiate that down to 10, but maybe you go, I don't have 10 in my pocket. You can negotiate. You can always negotiate anything. Hey, I'm in government contracting. How about I go win 2 bodies? I give you 1 and I keep 1 and you do all the recruiting, like anything in there. But they're experts at it. You can figure out how to outsource that. Don't get distracted starting their business inside of your company. If their business is recruiting, why would you start a recruiting business inside your own company as just an aside? And that basically is what it is when we hire those people. Finance, legal, these 2 things, outsource them, in my opinion. There's so many great CPA firms, accounting firms, bookkeepers, people who are fractional CFOs, meaning they really want the freedom to do what they're doing, but they could come in and easily run a $100 million company, let's say, but they're willing to work for you for, let's say, $200 an hour. Well, then you just manage that cost in there, but they do a great job. I'm standing up with my co-founders, GovCon in a Box, and I'm CEO. And one of the things one of my founders really liked that I said is the minute we're ready, I'm pushing the financial side of the tasks out. We all need to understand a balance sheet, things like that. Yes, for sure. But I don't need to do it. I don't need to be the guy going into QuickBooks, right? And I don't need anybody else in the company. I need them all focused on core competency. You should do that same thing. There's fantastic amount of lawyers out there who are in the GovCon space. So clearly you're not bringing that in-house. Security and FSOs. I sometimes see people give it to internal people. It's like, outsource that. There's people you can outsource that to now. And we did that even 10 years ago in my last business where we were outsourcing FSOs, right? And so that responsibility could be out there. Human resources, same thing. You bring somebody in, you have to HR them as they're HRing everybody else, if this makes sense. But there's so many companies that are experts at this now. That's their core business. And they come in and it seems like they're there. They'll have like weekly meetings or something. And so it seems really good. IT support, hopefully you know to outsource that. My recommendations are if you're an owner or a CEO, et cetera, you need to be doing selling 80% of the time. The only excuse is if you're full-time billable, and you should already know that you're trying to come out of that. But don't come out of that and get into finance. Be the salesperson for your company. Make sure you have service and solution architects around who can do it. These positions, service delivery, sales, proposal writers, I believe those should all stay in-house. And even with AI tools, you definitely need a proposal writer, proposal manager inside. The AI is just a draft. Okay, here's what I want you to remember from today's training is maximize outsourcing, own the service delivery, never outsource that, and own sales. Get really good at that. Don't abdicate your responsibility to sell to your customers, to understand your customers. Own that particular process. Hey, as we're ending here, just remember government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.